Rain clouds gathered above the city that afternoon, but outside Mercy General Hospital, the storm had already begun. A 6-year-old girl stood trembling on the wet asphalt, clutching the folds of her sky-blue dress. Tears carved lines down her dirt-streaked cheeks. Her small voice broke through the noise of traffic and cruel laughter echoing from 3 men standing by the hospital gate. She pointed toward the glass doors where her mother, pale, shaking, barely standing, was being held back. "They won't let my mommy in," she cried, her words slicing through the air like a plea from another world. If you believe kindness can still change the world, if you believe good hearts still rise when darkness closes in, take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Kindness Corner. Because what happened next will remind you why humanity is worth believing in. Her name was Sophie Turner, a child too young to understand cruelty, but old enough to recognize fear. Her mother, Laura, had been working double shifts at a diner for months, barely managing to afford her medication after an infection left her weak and gasping for breath. That morning, when Laura collapsed at home, Sophie did what any daughter would do. She held her mother's hand, ran into the street, and begged for help. But fate had darker plans that day. The hospital's main entrance was under renovation. The only open gate was guarded by 3 contractors, rough, cold, and heartless, who saw a desperate woman not as a life in danger, but as an inconvenience. They blocked her path. They sneered, telling her to wait for the shift change. Sophie tugged at their sleeves, begging them to move, but the men only laughed. One, tall and lean in a gray sleeveless hoodie, cigarette dangling from his lips, waved her off like a fly. Another, slouched against the wall, filmed the scene on his phone, mocking her pain like it was a show. The third, a heavy-set man in a red flannel, muttered, "People like her can wait their turn." Laura's breaths grew heavier. Her knees buckled once, then again, until she fell against the glass doors, pressing a trembling hand to her stomach. Sophie screamed for help, but no one came. Pedestrians passed by, eyes averted, pretending not to see. Then came the sound that changed everything, a deep, thunderous rumble of motorcycle engines rolling down the street. Sophie turned, startled as 5 bikes slowed to a stop near the hospital gate. Engines died. Silence fell. Only the metallic clicks of cooling engines and the echo of heavy boots filled the air. At the front stood a man built like iron and time itself. Ryder Callan, late 40s, weathered face, gray streaks in his beard. Arms covered in tattoos, each mark a memory of battles fought and brothers lost. His black leather vest bore 2 simple patches, Hells Angels and RL, CHLLS. His eyes, sharp and cold, scanned the scene. The crying child, the laughing men, the woman collapsing by the glass. For a long moment, no one moved. Sophie stepped forward, wiping her tears. "Please," she whispered. "Those men won't let my mommy in the hospital." Ryder crouched, his leather creaking as he met her gaze. In his mirrored sunglasses, her tiny reflection trembled. Then slowly he stood, and the look in his eyes changed everything. Without a word, he handed his gloves to one of his men and began to walk. The others followed, spreading out like a storm front across the asphalt. The 3 men froze. Their laughter died mid-breath. Ryder's boots echoed with steady purpose as he stopped inches from them. His voice came low and gravelly. "Move." Pause. "Final." The man in the hoodie tried to sneer, but Ryder's stare cut him down before the words could leave his mouth. Behind him, his brothers stood silent. Mace, a bald giant, rested one heavy hand on a motorcycle, every muscle coiled, ready. Another, younger, long-haired rider folded his arms, eyes locked on the guards. It didn't take long. The men stepped aside, mumbling excuses, eyes down. Ryder nodded once toward Laura, now barely conscious, and knelt beside her. He lifted her gently, her arm draped over his shoulder. "She's going in," he said quietly. The automatic doors slid open without another word. Inside, nurses rushed forward with a stretcher. Doctors shouted orders. Sophie clung to her mother's hand until she disappeared behind the curtain of the emergency ward. Outside, The bikers stood guard, silent sentinels beneath the gray afternoon sky. When Ryder finally stepped back outside, Sophie ran to him. Tears streamed down her face, but this time they were tears of relief. "Thank you," she whispered. Ryder smiled faintly, brushed the hair from her forehead, and said, "You're braver than most grown men I know." He didn't stay long, just long enough to make sure Laura was safe. Before leaving, he slipped a folded $20 bill into Sophie's small hand. On it, written in pen, were 3 simple words: "For Mom's medicine." The engines roared back to life. Hospital staff watched through the windows in silence, not because of the leather jackets or the thunder of bikes, but because they had just witnessed something rare, something pure. In a world too quick to turn away from pain, 5 men stopped, and in stopping they changed a life. That evening, when Laura woke up, Sophie was still at her bedside, clutching the note like treasure. "Who helped us?" she asked softly. Sophie smiled and said, "Angels." "Mommy, Hell's Angels." If this story touched your heart, if you believe kindness can come from the most unexpected places, please like, share, and subscribe to Kindness Corner, where real stories of compassion remind us what humanity still means. Before you go, tell us in the comments, what would you have done if you were there that day? Because sometimes one act of courage is all it takes to change someone's forever.